guys, Allison here, and I'm about to share with you a deep, dark secret. Authors make mistakes. I know, crazy thought, right? But yeah, they're human too. They make mistakes. And Rick Riordan is no exception. So today, we will be highlighting his top 11 plot holes. Why 11? Because it was originally going to be 10, and then I thought of one other one, and I was like, oh, that's a pretty big one. So now it's 11. Enjoy.
Number 11.
Hey, you guys remember that time when Blackjack had a gender swap? Yeah, I don't either, but apparently it happened because in the Sea of Monsters, which is right here, Blackjack is referred to as a she throughout the book. And then from Titan's Curse to the rest of the books afterwards, Blackjack is a he. Now, there's nothing wrong if Blackjack did have a gender change. However, I don't think Rick Riordan intended for Blackjack to be a transgender Pegasus.
Number 10.
Hey, do you guys also remember that time when Thalia had green eyes? Because I do. In The Lightning Thief, Thalia is referred to as having green eyes, despite the fact that in every book besides this one, she is said to have blue eyes.
Number 9.
Sally Jackson, mother of Percy Jackson, claimed that she met Percy's father, Poseidon, in the summer, and they had an affair during that time. However, how is it that they had an affair during summer if Percy was born in August? And there's a simple explanation to this. Maybe she met Poseidon in Australia, where December is considered summer, but I highly doubt that Sally was in Australia, given the fact that, well, she was pretty poor. The last time I checked, trips to Australia are pretty expensive, so...
Number 8.
Jason has vivid memories of when he was 2. I don't know about you, but my earliest memories are of when I was 4. I did some research. Typically, people's earliest memories range from 8 years old all the way down to 2 years old. So, that Jason, he's not totally a plot hole here. However, if your earliest memories are of when you were 2, that's really early, so they're probably going to be not really specific at all, just like a small moment. However, in Blood of Olympus, Jason has really descriptive, detailed memories of when he was 2. He remembers exactly what his mother's last words were to him. He remembers the wolves. He remembers, running through the forest, crying, calling for Thalia. He remembers all of this in great detail, which is shocking because, like I said, he was 2.
Number 7.
How is Leo's body still intact? Leo sacrifices his life to destroy Gaia via giant explosion. And then later, he's brought back to life using the physician's cure. However, I'm saying the word however a lot. In order for the physician's cure to really work, his body would need to still be intact. I highly doubt that after you involved in a giant explosion, your body would be, perfectly intact with the exception of a couple, scorch marks. I get it, he's immune to fire, but, explosions are more than just a little fire. They're, the impact of it and stuff like that. I feel like his body would be, totally, mutilated or, just plain vaporized. But no, his body is perfectly fine and ready to be brought back to life. Also, Festus. Festus was also in the explosion, and the biggest injuries he suffered were a broken leg. I understand that celestial bronze is really strong, but I really don't think it's that strong.
Number 6.
Thalia's age. Okay, we're gonna need a diagram for this one. In The Lost Hero, Thalia claims that she was 7 years old when Jason was born. That means that Thalia is 7 years older than Jason. On the contrary, in the Demigod Diaries, Thalia is said to be 12 when Annabeth is 7. That would imply that Thalia is 5 years older than Annabeth. In Mark of Athena, Annabeth is 16, while Jason turns 16. However, a month later in House of Hades, Annabeth turns 17. This would imply that Annabeth is a year and a month older than Jason. This doesn't add up. According to our earlier calculations done with these two books, Annabeth is 2 years older. However, according to this, she's a year and a month. Oh, Rick.
Number 5.
Nico's age. If you're longtime fans of the series, you knew this was coming. In Titan's Curse, Nico is said to be 10. 6 months later, in the Battle of the Labyrinth, he's 11. This would imply that his birthday is between December, when this book happened, and August-ish, when this book happened. Rick claims in an interview that his birthday is January 28th, which adds up. Continuing on, Nico is 12 in The Last Olympian. Still adds up. This is when it gets kind of weird. 9 months later, in Son of Neptune, he's 14. Shouldn't he be 13 now? What gets really weird is when you try to figure out the year. In House of Hades, Jason notices that Nico is very familiar with the town of Split. Nico explains that this is because he visited Split in 1938, when he was 6. This would imply that he was born in 1932. It gets even more weird when you think about how Nico and Bianca were sent to the Lotus Hotel after World War II, which ended in 1945. This would imply that Nico was 13 when he was sent to the Lotus Hotel, when in all actuality, he should have been 10 at most. If he was 10 in 1945, then shouldn't that mean he was born in 1935? So let's review our options for possible years that Nico was born. We've got 1932, 1935, and then in an interview, Rick said that he was born in 1925. Where'd you get that number from? So yes, in summary, no one really knows what year he was born. I don't even think Rick knows. Also, he somehow mysteriously went from 12 years old to 14 years old in 9 months, which I don't really think is possible. Rick has tried to explain this before by saying that,
oh, Percy was guessing his age, so, Percy must have been wrong and just guessed that he was, a year younger than he actually was.
But I think that's just Rick, trying to cover up his mistake, because, it just gets confusing, because when you're reading these books, you're like, okay, we have a 12-year-old, and then you're like, wait, how do we get a 14-year-old? And it just gets confusing, and Rick, you done messed up, man. Poor Nico, I wonder if he even knows how old he is.
Number 4.
In this series, names have power. In Lightning Thief, they explain that the reason they call Dionysus Mr. D is because
by calling him by his real name, there's power in that, names have power, and yada yada yada.
In the Red Pyramid, Bast warns the Cain kids not to say Apophis because names have power. In House of Hades, Hazel asks who this great sorceress is that she must fight, and Hecate says that she doesn't want to say the name of this person because the names have power and yada yada yada. Point is, you're not supposed to say the names of powerful people in this series. So why the flying f*** are they constantly saying the names of powerful people in the series? If they would have just said that in, Lightning Thief, that,
oh, you can't say those names because blah blah blah.
And then after that, they just kept saying the names of these powerful people, then, you could have just said, oh, Rick must have forgotten that. But no! Throughout the series, he's reminding us not to say their names, yet every other sentence they say the names of these powerful people. I don't think you can go a page within the Heroes of Olympus series without seeing the name Gaia. If I had a penny for every time they said Kronos in The Last Olympian, I would have Michael Phelps' swimming pool-sized quantity of money, which is a lot.
Number 3.
Oh, secret names. You caused quite a plot hole. In the Cain Chronicles, they follow Egyptian mythology, and a big part of Egyptian mythology is the idea of secret names. You have the name that, your parents gave you when you were born, but within Egyptian mythology, you have, your own name that, there's, a summary of who you are in 2 to 5 words. And supposedly, if someone finds out your secret name, they can control you and make you do whatever they want you to do. In the Red Pyramid, Sadie discovers the secret name of one of the villains, Set. His secret name? Evil Day. How creative. Because of this, like I said, she's able to control him. However, in Throne of Fire, she makes this deal with Set, and part of the deal includes her losing the ability to use his secret name. She gives it up, as they explain it. By that I mean, like, she's no longer able to say it or write it down or really use it at all. Like, she still knows what his secret name is, she just can't use it at all. The plot hole comes in this. This series is written in the form of an audio recording. The idea of these books is that Carter and Sadie, the two main characters, are recording themselves telling the story of what happened. Because of this, every word of the series is something that they said verbally. So why is it that Sadie is still able to say Evil Day? I guess Rick must have forgotten that these were audio recordings. He was like,
oh, this is Sadie's internal narration.
But even internal narration is stuff that they say out loud for the recording. So yeah, that's a hole.
Number 2.
We're getting close here. Here, we're getting to the big ones, the big holes here. This plot hole for number 2 is Gaia's entire plan in Mark of Athena. It's just one big plot hole. Okay, so you may argue that, like,
oh, this wasn't Gaia's plan. This was the plan of, like, those two twin giant guys, Zephialtes and Otis.
But Gaia approved of this plan. And there's even a point in Mark of Athena where, like, those twin giants were talking about this plan, and there was stuff that they didn't even know about this, so I'm gonna assume that Gaia made this plan. And it's a pretty, whole-y plan? Okay, so this plan hinges on the idea that Nico falls into Tartarus and discovers the location of the Doors of Death, along with how to close them, and all this valuable information. That way, when they use him for bait later, like, he's more valuable bait. The Seven are like, we need him now because he knows how to close the Doors of Death. And yeah. So how did they get him into Tartarus? Different characters will tell you different things. Raina and Jason both claimed that he jumped in voluntarily to look for the Doors of Death. However, Nico claims that he was forced in there, and I'm gonna take his word because he was actually there. Anyways, how did they get him into Tartarus? He knows the underworld really well. He knows better than to, like, go near that pit to Tartarus, so it's not like the monsters in there could, like, with their force of evil, suck him in there. He wouldn't go close enough for someone to sneak up behind him and just push him in there. Maybe he was, like, farther off in some other part of the underworld, and, like, he got captured and, like, brought to Tartarus. However, did we forget that he's the freaking Ghost King? The ghost of the underworld adore him. They call him the Ghost King. He's even more powerful down there than he is in the mortal world. If he wanted to, he could summon, like, an entire army of dead people, and they will fight for him because they love him. So if he was being attacked and forced into Tartarus, I feel like he would have, like, called on some of his ghost friends, but no, he just falls in. How did he get there? This question has plagued my mind for years. Ever since I read this book, I've just been wondering that. I've thought of all the possibilities, and I just can't figure out how they got that kid into Tartarus. He couldn't have been forced in there from, like, Also, the pomegranate seeds. Those giants, they just throw him in that bronze jar, and, like, if he didn't have those pomegranate seeds, he'd be dead. He just so happened to have the exact number of seeds he needed in order to survive that whole ordeal. What if he was, like, one short? Gaia's whole plan would have been ruined if he died, because these demigods, they can drop in on him and see what he's up to in dreams and visions and stuff like that. So if he died, their whole plan would have been ruined and the Seven wouldn't have come, because, what's the point of coming for a corpse? Not only how did they know he'd have the exact number, how did they know he'd have any at all? Did they, like, check him? In the book, those two giant guys, they seemed surprised by the fact that he was going into that death trance thing with the pomegranate seeds. So they didn't know that he was gonna have those. Did they just throw him in there and expect that he would suffocate to death? Because if not for the seeds, like I said, he would have died. That whole plan would have just fallen apart. So, that plan, Gaia, it wasn't your best work.
Number 1.
Here it is. The number 1 Rick Riordan plot hole. Piper made no progress from the end of Lost Hero to the beginning of Mark of Athena. Now you may be wondering,
How's that a plot hole? Like, what, Allison, dearest, what do you mean?
what I mean is, with this quest, some characters got more of a heads up than others. Like, Percy and Frank and Hazel, they didn't know they were going on this quest till like 5 minutes beforehand when like the Argo 2 showed up and they're like, hey, we're going to quest, let's go, right now. Cool. However, Annabeth, Jason, Leo, and Piper all knew ahead of time. Like, they had a 6-month heads up. Now, some characters are excused here. I mean, like, Annabeth and Jason have been training and working on their demigodding skills their entire lives. And Leo, he was busy, building the Argo 2. Piper has no excuse. You know that you're going on this quest to save the world. You get a 6-month heads up and she doesn't prepare or anything. Like, if I were her, I would be practicing my charm speaking abilities all the time, seeing how far I can go. She has this dagger and she doesn't know how to use it. I would learn how to use it. Later shows like an interest in sword fighting. I would learn how to sword fight. I would learn hand-to-hand combat. She spends these 6 months that she could be preparing at Camp Half-Blood, a camp for demigods, to learn how to fight monsters. So why did she make no progress? Did she just not care? In this book, it makes sense that she doesn't know how to do any sort of combat because she's never been trained in that. It makes sense that she's like rough with her charms because she's never had to really use it in combat before. In this book, she should be the master of this. It starts off with them being attacked by these Romans and she doesn't know how to fend them off.
You got a 6-month heads up, girl.
But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more top 10 stuff, let me know. If you like this, give it a like. If you have something to say, give me a comment. I read all the comments. Even if I don't respond to everything, I read them all. Love you, and I love you, and I love you. Okay, bye.